On this episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone, we're going to talk about AEW Dark and, of course, Impact. So, all of that is coming up today on Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Hey everyone, this is J-Rod here for Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things pro wrestling from AEW, NXT, New Japan, this and that. Now, before we start with anything, as you guys been aware what happened in New Japan, it was the most shocking turning of event. They just recently had the New Japan Cup. If you guys are not familiarized with that, that type of tournament gives you a chance to become number one contender for the IWGP Championship, or should I say the double championship, that was currently at the time held by Tetsuya Naito, that he won at this past Wrestle Kingdom. Now, if you guys didn't know, Evo won the New Japan Cup, and it became clear it was going to be Ingorbenable versus Ingorbenable. It didn't turn out that way. He did the too sweet hand gesture, and it revealed he is in fact now with Bullet Club. And he actually was set the next following day to face Tetsuya Naito at Dominion in Osaka-jo Hall. And of course, he won the title thanks to the interference of Dick Togo disguised as Bushi. And Dick Togo is now a member of Bullet Club. So that means there are 7 Japanese wrestlers in Bullet Club. Now, you may ask yourselves this, like, why is that important? Originally, the Bullet Club faction was more of a foreign stable. If you recall, the original faction was with Prince Devitt, who's Irish, Belloc Fale, Tongan born in New Zealand. Then there's Tama Tonga, his cousin, who's also Tongan but living in the U.S., Carl Anderson, Dog Gallows. I can go on until Yujiro Takahashi became the first Japanese wrestler to join. Then we had, what's his name, Taiji Ishimori, then Yado and Geto, then Kenta, then Evil. So it became kind of like a crystal clear. But the reason that happened is, let's just take back on what you should know. Not a lot of the foreign wrestlers are currently in Japan, with the exception of Zack Sabre Jr., who he and Taishi were set to face against Kota Ibushi and Hiroshi Tanahashi, the Golden Ace, for the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team titles. But none of the foreign members of Bullet Club were there. And I don't know if I can confirm this, but I looked in Wikipedia, even though some people can say it's a lot of bull crap. It appears that, what's his name? Evil is now the leader of Bullet Club, while the foreigners are not there. So Jay White is still the leader, but Evil is taking command at the moment as soon as Jay White returns. So that makes he is the 6th member, but it's the first time we see a Japanese wrestler take over Bullet Club, because it's always been more of a foreign faction. If you go back to the history of Bullet Club, we had Prince Devitt, better known as Finn Balor. Then we had AJ Styles, Carl Anderson, Kenny Omega, Jay White, and now Evil. All of these guys are from different foreigns. Prince Devitt, if you know, he was Irish. AJ and Carl Anderson, both Americans. Kenny Omega, Canadian. Jay White, New Zealand. So I can go on in that. That's what the whole stable faction with Bullet Club. Now, you probably ask yourselves this other question that you may want to know. Why is that important? Well, as you know, New Japan always has this whole thing where they plan everything within a year in advance. So as we know, we're not going on now as we speak, they could be planning every event the following year. Now, I don't know what it is. Now, if you guys don't know this, last year it was supposed to be Kenny regaining the IWGP title, and he will be facing against Tetsuya Naito with the idea of the double championship. So basically, they already had that planned out, but we all know what happened to Kenny. He ended up going to AEW, and that kind of scrapped a bit of the plans. So that's the whole point. And I know New Japan hasn't done any shows since a few months ago, back in March, but they had no other choice but to do this because right now they don't want to disappoint the fans. We know that All Japan, Pro Wrestling Noah, Dragon Gate, and a few other Japanese promotions that either are televised or whatever, they're still continuing. Some are doing with no audience, others doing with limited audience. So New Japan felt they need to get back on track with that. Try to keep up with the others because New Japan is one of the best promotions in Japan. If you love Japanese wrestling, then you know what I'm talking about because it's important down there and it has to stay on afloat. And of course, we don't know how bad it would have been if they didn't do anything for the whole year. It would have maybe knocked them out from the top and have maybe All Japan or Pro Wrestling Noah. Who knows? But yeah, that's the thing that's going on with New Japan. So far, there's still no word from any of the foreign wrestlers. I do know Will Ospreay is currently on England, and he was dealing with the whole thing where he's being accused, where he blacklisted a female wrestler because this woman got into a heated argument with B. Priestley or whatever the scenario was. I do know Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, who are set to return to New Japan, are currently ready to make their appearance in Impact. Who else is not there? Juice Robinson, he's not there. I do know currently he just entered a relationship with NXT UK star Tony Storm. You know, I can go on who's not there. But New Japan, like I said, they have to keep moving forward to keep their promotion going at float at this point. So I think that's about it. So let's just jump in with AEW Dark. Alright, so we're only one day away from AEW Dynamite's Fight for the Fallen. This is the second year they do this show. Well, originally it was a pay-per-view, but it was almost counter-programmed by WWE, tried to use Evolve. But right now, let's jump in with AEW Dark. First match was a women's tag team match with Roche Chanel and Diamante versus the Nightmare Sisters with consistent of Brandy Rhodes and Allie. Now, we've seen the stories about Brandy and Allie not getting along. It's still unclear what's her intentions with QT Marshall. As you know, QT Marshall is at home trying to get better after he contracted the COVID-19. But that match was interesting to see. There is talk that Tony said that they are considering maybe having a women's tag team division. I think it's something that it could be done because, as we all know, tag team division down in AEW has been becoming a priority and is stacked. We can see many women tag team down there, and I would love to see that. You know, I know WWE has their own, but none of those titles are everywhere. You can see them on Raw, SmackDown, NXT, NXT UK, anywhere. But that's how it is, and WWE has been treating them as a joke of recently, which is kind of bad. But hopefully they I don't know if they can able to recover from that. But anyway, it was a good match. I'll give it maybe a 7. The Nightmare Sisters won. But we'll see what happens the following day because tomorrow they are going to be in action the next day. Next match we have Robert Anthony versus Ricky Starks. It was interesting. Love Ricky Starks. Did love his work, what he did with NWA in the past. He really showed his in-ring work. You know, the way he portrays his character. I like it. He picked up the victory as always. So this will be his second win, I think. I know his first match he had in AEW was against Cody. He lost, but do see him down the line, maybe either getting a title shot for the TNT down the line, we'll see, or maybe World Championship. Next match is a 6-man tag team match, consistent of Sean Dean, the captain, Joe Alonzo, and Will Hobbs versus Dark Order's 3, 4, and 5. If you guys don't know who I'm referring to, I'm talking about Ryan Reynolds, no, John Silver, Alex Reynolds, and of course Alan Angels. So it was a pretty interesting dynamic. As you know, like I said, I've always been a tag team fanatic, but the six man is very interesting. I have to say, the Dark Order, these three guys are the best as a trio. Because I do know they are talking about having a trios championship for the upcoming Jericho cruise coming up, and it's been talked about it before on the last cruise that they had early this year, and I practically can't see them. So, but yeah, and of course, Dark Order took the victory. As expected, it was more like we know that the main roster guys are like Dark Order could win this one, so that's the way I would have seen it. Next match was an interesting one. Michael Nakazawa versus Marco Stunt. So this was a very interesting. Now, before the start of the match, Michael Nakazawa, we all know what he does. He is the master of Turkish oil wrestling. Yeah, you heard me right. Turkish oil wrestling. He didn't use it. I think in his mind he believed, okay, I'm facing a little shrimp. But you know the old saying, never judge a book by its cover. Come on, Marco Stunt may be a pint-sized dweeb, as you guys think, but never judge Marco Stunt's character and attitude in the ring. He's a fighting warrior no matter how small he is. He's already proven time and time again. He has done great things. It was an interesting match. I think my favorite moment of this match was when Michael Nagasawa tried to pull out his thong and try to get it into Marco's face. But instead, he put it on his own face. Well, Marco put that on his face, and it was very clear how it ended, where Michael can't believe he got his own thong in his face. Post-match, as soon as he lost, Michael Nakazawa again got in the face of Alex Jabali. This time, it was no punch like last time. I think Alex Jabali hasn't forgotten what happened the last time. As you know, 2 years ago, Alex Jabali beat him in a match for a CEO New Japan event. And of course, we did saw last year Alex Jabali at Fyter Fest versus Michael Nakazawa in a hardcore match, which was set up by Matt Jackson, who has a problem with Michael. So, pretty much it. The next match, we had a tag team match. Brady Pierce teaming with Pineapple Pete versus Serpentico and Luther. Now, this whole thing with Serpentico and Luther, I saw this match. I have to say, Luther and Serpentico are a perfect pair. I became a fan of Serpentico months early this year. I didn't know about existence. First time I saw him is where he was teaming with Mecha Wolf, Ricky something who worked with Ricky Martinez, Selena De La Renta, and a few others. Part of that whole Dorada, Incorporated, whatever they call it. But it was interesting to see Serpentico. I liked his look. I love his mask. But with him and Luther, I feel they fit perfectly as a tag team. I'm thinking about sending a message on Instagram, see what he says. But they picked up the victory. I didn't know because I didn't know what to expect. Because Pineapple P is becoming a popular character thanks to Jericho. But Serpentico and Luther are a perfect team. I have to say, I can see these guys going for the tag team titles down the line as a team. I can't wait to see it. Now, the next match, we had Brandon Cutler and Peter Avalon along with Leva Bates versus Jurassic Express's Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. But in ringside, we had the Young Bucks right there. If you guys don't know this, part of that whole thing was already recorded on Being the Elite. Yeah, they recorded some parts of that match because Young Bucks are trying to get Brandon Cutler, their buddy, to get a win. He's still winless, along with Peter. But this whole thing with them being a tag team has been kind of crazy. But there was a great spot in this where Leva Bates gave Jungle Boy a Hurricanrana, and I thought that was pretty dope. I mean, she is a wrestler too, but we hardly get to see her. I mean, she's like the one who's by Peter Avalon's side, and pretty much that's what happened. Now, as you all know, what Impact Wrestling's been doing with Moose with the TNA World Title. Last week, Taz introduced Brian Cage an old title of his called the FTW, which makes him a champion, and he put it on the line against Brian Pillman Jr. It was a good match. I have to say, I hope if things don't go well with Brian Pillman when MLW gets back, I would love to see him go with AEW. It feels like he could be a much bigger star there too, despite that MLW hasn't done any shows, but it was good. But fortunately, Brian Cage won the match. So some matches were good, but I said, like right now, I did like the idea of Simpetico and Luther being a tag team. Uh, Dark Order feels like with 3, 4, and 5 are perfect to be in like a trios championship tournament type. Um, the thing with the Young Bucks and being with supporting Brandon Cutler and Peter Avalon, even though those guys are getting good as a tag team. I love the idea. Of course, the whole FTW championship, it's pretty good. So I think that's about it for AEW Dark. So let's move forward with Impact Wrestling right now. Okay, so Impact Wrestling, we're not that far off from going to the upcoming pay-per-view Slammiversary. It's set. If you guys are not familiarized with this particular pay-per-view, this is like their pinnacle pay-per-view, kind of like their WrestleMania. As you know, every promotion has their own WrestleMania type. Like, and New Japan has Wrestle Kingdom. AEW officially made All Out as their personal WrestleMania because that was the pinnacle of the All In show that they had 2 years ago. Who else has that kind of thing? AAA has Triple Mania. I'm not sure who else has their own type of wrestling, kind of like WrestleMania type. I'm trying to think, but yeah, that's what it's gonna happen. Now, the first match was in a 10-woman tag team match. First team consistent with Kara Hogan, Tasha Steelz, Kimberly, Rosemary, and Taya Valkyrie, along with Johnny Bravo, versus Havoc, Nevaeh, Alicia Edwards, Susie, and Kylie Ray. This match was unbelievable. I have to say, like, they said it was true that the knockouts in the women's division down on Impact is the best one. I know that all these women are going to participate in some sort of gauntlet or battle royal event on Slammiversary. I will talk about that when the pay-per-view will appear. I'm excited for it. But the way this match ended, Susie did something unexpected. She did the finisher move of one particular person, her real life ego, Su Yung. So basically, Susie could come out at any given time. Yeah. Lock the doors. So post-match, it became an all brawl, and of course, all bets are off for this Saturday for Slammiversary. Now, the next thing we see a little segment with Ace Austin along with Madman Fulton. These guys are in Dayton, Ohio, where Fulton's originally from. But Ace is trying to get him to overcome the fact of what happened between him. Between him and OVE. So he's like saying you got to go back to your roots to re-initiate yourself. You know, that's something that's true amongst people like us. You know, we always go back to our roots, and it's always been like that. So there's nothing wrong with that. Then, of course, we see the continuation of the arm wrestle match between Hernandez and Rhino. Oh my god. It hasn't finished. But later it kind of went to a draw, so they decided to try to set up for a street fight match. Then we jump in with a Impact Plus flashback moment of the week. It was Slammiversary 2013 in for the X Division Championship at a Ultimate X match between Kenny King, Suicide, and Chris Sabin. This was one of those matches where Chris Sabin returned to the limelight due to the fact we haven't seen him for quite some time, and he's the master of the X Division. It's great to see. I miss the Ultimate X. I wish that Impact could bring that back. I feel they should, but of course that was TNA. It would never change. But I miss it. So Chris Sabin won that match. The next match is a tag team match between Triple XL versus Yee-Hoo, the Deaners. So this one was a very interesting match. I think right now we're seeing the Deaners are being pushed more and more as we expected. As you know, sometimes they work with wrestlers that give them a much good push, and the Deaners are amongst those guys that could go to that. Great match. They won the victory, but Triple XL are not happy, so they decided post-match to... So it ended like that. Now, as you know, the next thing we see, next part of the show, we had Raju. He was warming up, and out of nowhere, Moose shows up asking him to be the tag team partner. Raju has been down on his luck for a while since the Desi Hit Squad left Impact, and he's the last Desi to be in Impact. He hasn't been on a winning streak that much. Moose, he's under the pressure knowing that he is now, the Tommy Dreamer got into his head, all this and that. So he asked him to be, and of course he tells him that he's the last on the barrel. No one wants a team with Moose because Moose still claims he is the true world champion. As we all know, that's not true. He's delusional, and we'll see what happens because I'm expected that he's going to face a former champion to prove him wrong, that he is not a real champion. Then we see a little segment. As you know, Johnny Swinger has been banned from ringside by the ref because Swinger talked smack about him, and he went to confront him, and this and that, and of course, he kind of got to him saying that he will fight him in court, knowing that he should not have banned him. So he, of course, granted permission. And they throw a little video package where we see the rivalry between Willie Mack and Chris Bay, where Chris Bay claims that his destiny is to claim the X Division Championship, which is kind of like a pretty good story. Now, once it jumps out of it, Swinger stopped by and he overheard Chris Bay talking to the interviewer. Chris Bay said some very disturbing words about him that kind of made Johnny Swinger question, was him trying to help him was a mistake or he was just using him, which is kind of interesting story to go. So we don't know for sure what's going to happen at Slammiversary, since we know he's going to be taking on Willie Mack at Slammiversary for the X Division title. So that we got to pay attention. Now the next match is Moose and Rohit Raju versus Crazy Steve and Tommy Dreamer. This was one of those matches, was great. Tommy Dreamer and Crazy Steve were great because they're both crazy. They're hardcore guys. I can't wait to see more of that. But as it was still like where Rohit is still trying to come up with the victory, but still no luck. But Crazy Steve and Tommy Dreamer won the match. It was great. So we don't know. So hopefully Tommy Dreamer beats Moose this coming Saturday at Slammiversary. Next thing we see, Austin and Fulton finally arrived at the gym, disrespected the driver. So basically, he was still being an ass. Now, the next match is the street match where Hernandez and Rhino were fighting. It got on. So they decided to call it a draw. So they split the money in half. So basically, they're both equal matches. Kind of funny segment. Then we see they still do with the story with the whole um, vacant of the Impact World titles. As we know, it happened about a month ago. Then we go see Madman Fulton and Ace Austin at the gym. Um, and then still talking about the mystery people that were released from Impact, from WWE. We know they're going to be heading to Impact. And then we see this talk about the story about Eddie Edwards. If you guys aren't familiarized with him that much, he is a Triple Crown champion. He's been world champion, one-time X Division champion, and five-time tag team champion. You probably ask who was his partner. Davey Richards. They were known as the American Werewolves. Really good tag team. So the next thing we see, Trey and Wentz were hanging out, and all of a sudden they get notified that Fulton and of course Austin were in Daytona, and they were there too. So they decided, you know what, they're gonna go confront them. As soon as they happen, Wentz distracts Fulton and locked him in a room, while Trey actually tries to take Austin out. He hasn't forgotten what happened to him over the last year, where he was messing around with his mom, all this and that, and Fulton took him out. Right now, at this point, the only thing focusing him right now is getting his hands on Austin for all the things he's done to him. It was a great story. Like, this rivalry between Trey and Austin probably looks like it's gonna last forever. But as soon as Trey was about to take out Austin, he was catched by Fulton. It was a 2-on-1, but luckily Wentz was there to back him up. Wentz is the kind of best friend who will always have his back, because he was angry at the fact that he knew that it was Ace Austin, but the problem was who could have done it, and of course it was Fulton. Then the after show. This has become interesting. As you all know, recently they said a former world champion is heading to Impact. There is one person who could have been, and that person is EC3. So that's my assumption. So I think, but what happened is he signed a dotted line of a contract and he mailed it to someone, and the person who received it was Scott D'Amore. And of course, D'Amore is satisfied. Now, the suspense with this coming Slammiversary is killing me. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. I hope you guys will catch it. I will do a review the following day on that because I got to see it. So as soon as that happens, you'll be the first guys to find out. And probably I will talk about that on the podcast. As for now, I will hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I will follow more on New Japan, what's going on. I didn't do a review on that. The whole thing with Evil still sinks me in. And, of course, same thing with Nico. But for now, I must bid all of you adieu. So, stay safe. Wash your hands. Goodbye. And have a nice day.